you said that the curfew made it easier for police to enforce, yet today the Police Commissioner says that they weren't consulted.
Well, the Police Commissioner and Police Command have, throughout all of our decisions, been really clear with us that they need rules that are as easily enforced as possible. And the curfew, together with 5 kilometre rules, together with, there's a very long list of different decisions that we've made over these last few months, and indeed since the beginning of the pandemic. It's always been clear to us that we need to make the job of police, the amazing work that they do, as simple as possible. And I'll go back to the point I made off the top. There are very few lawful reasons that you can leave your home at any hour of the day. The curfew doesn't change that. It simply means that it is much easier for Victoria Police to make that assessment about whether someone should or should not be out of their home. And it does send a very clear message to people that there is a very real risk that if you are out of your home for an unlawful reason between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m, or soon to be 9 p.m. and 5 a.m, there's every chance that police will catch you and police will fine you. And what that's done is it's limited the amount of unlawful movement. That's the key point here. Unlawful movement that is against the rules, and movement that does nothing but potentially spread this virus. So police are doing an amazing job, and with the rules that we have in place and any decisions we make in the weeks and months ahead, we'll always be minded to make sure that they are as simple and as enforceable as they possibly can be.
Police say it wasn't their idea and the Chose said it wasn't his idea. Whose idea?
Well, as I've said to you before, Rachel, if people find fault with that rule or any other rule, then they can find fault with me.
I'm not talking about whether there's fault with the rule, I'm just asking whose idea it was.
Well, decisions are made by groups of people, and I can't necessarily pinpoint for you the exact individual and the exact moment that it was suggested that we put a curfew on. And what I'm saying to you is anyone who is displeased with that or doesn't think that's a proportionate measure, well, that's a decision that I've made. All these decisions are ultimately decisions that the government has made, and as the leader of the government, I'll be accountable for that. But there's no denying, simply no denying, that those measures have made the job of police never easy, but it has made it clearer cut, it has made it somewhat simpler, and driving down movement, there's no denying. Less movement means less virus. That's what all of these rules are about, and the curfew will come off when it is appropriate, and we've already foreshadowed that.
You keep saying you'll be driven by the evidence and the data,
Yes.
though, and isn't it a very reasonable question to say, what is the data and the evidence you have to justify the curfew, and isn't it okay for the public to ask to see that? If there is substantial evidence that illegal gatherings have come down because of curfew, shouldn't you be revealing the data? Because at the end of the day, we could have another wave of the virus, and isn't it really legitimate to know which measures were most effective so we know what to implement?
Sure.
Again?
I'm more than happy to try and get you some comparisons of some of the enforcement activity, pre-curfew and post-curfew, and I think what that will show you is that there are significantly less fines being issued for people gathering against the law in other people's homes. But let me get you that data. I'm more than happy to do that. I think it's important, though, not to fall into this trap where the only decisions the government can ever make about any matter are those that have been considered and advised by the Chief Health Officer. The Chief Health Officer wants and provides in many ways very detailed advice, and that's when those matters relate directly to public health. Matters of enforcement, matters of in many different areas. The government is free to go beyond. The government is free to make some administrative decisions that make the enforcement of the principles that the Chief Health Officer has put forward much more achievable. For instance, again, if you limit movement, then you limit the spread of this virus. And I'm happy to come back to you in terms of any data that...
Know by how much, though, the curfew actually, the limitation of...
But then I suppose I'd flip the question and say to you, well, what's being limited by the curfew?
I mean, you said that the only other
no,
activities, like
with
jogging at 11 o'clock at night, for example...
You can... No, hang on, let's go back to first principles. You can leave your home, one person, 1 hour per day, to go shopping for the things you need when you need them. That can only happen within curfew hours. So that means going to the supermarket at 8:30 p.m. or 10:30 p.m. or 2 in the morning, that's not an option. So that's a downside. The other reasons you can leave your home to exercise for 1 hour, soon to be 2 hours, and for some rec activity, to sit in the park, for instance. Obviously, that's not allowed outside curfew hours. So you wouldn't be able to go for a jog at 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, midnight. Okay? That's also a downside. The downside of not being able to do those two things in the dead of night is far outweighed, in my judgment, far outweighed by the fact that we are seeing case numbers fall, and those arrangements will be able to change. We'll be able to remove that curfew. The only things, apart from those two examples, the only thing the curfew makes almost impossible is illegal activity, leaving your home for reasons you are not lawfully allowed to do so. That's the key point that I'm making.